Good evening, visitors. Welcome to the Australian War Memorial's last post ceremony. My name is Craig Burrell, and joining us today from the Australian Army is Colonel Frank Colley. We warmly welcome a delegation from the National Institute of Defence Study, Japan, who are in attendance this evening. We welcome the veterans who have served, those that are still serving, and the families that support them. We acknowledge the members of RSL and Services Clubs Association, RSL Victoria and RSL Queensland, who are watching the broadcast of this ceremony across Australia. During this evening's ceremony, wreaths will be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection by visitors to the memorial and students on behalf of the following schools. From New South Wales, Our Lady of the Rosary Primary School and Northern Beaches Christian School. From Queensland, Canterbury College, Waterford, and from Victoria, Mountain District Christian School, Monbulk. Please stand and join in singing the National Anthem. Students, please be seated. The Australian War Memorial was the vision of Charles Bean, Australia's First World War official historian. Bean landed with the Australian troops on Gallipoli and stayed with them at the front through to the end of the war. The idea of this national memorial and museum came to him at Pozières, France, in the depths of the bloody fighting of 1916. Bean's idea was that this would be a place where families and friends could mourn their loved ones buried in faraway places. It would also be a place that could help all Australians understand what these men and women had endured and what they had done for us. Bean's vision, to which we remain true, is best expressed as inscribed in the entrance to the memorial's galleries. Here is their spirit in the hearts of the land they loved, and here we guard the record which they themselves made. Tonight, we will read the story behind just one of those on the Roll of Honour, which lists the names of more than 102,000 men and women who have given their lives for us in war and operations for more than a century. But first, we present a lament, Flowers of the Forest. Wreaths or floral tributes will now be laid at the base of the Pool of Reflection.
Today, we remember and pay tribute to Private Edward James Crichton Glassford. Edward Glassford was born in 1890, the third youngest child of Jean and James Glassford of Neutral Bay in Sydney. He attended Fort Street School in Sydney's Inner West and later trained and worked as an accountant. Before the war, he gained experience with firearms as a member of the New South Wales Rifle Club. He was described as having a quiet, reserved demeanour. Glassford enlisted in the Australian Imperial Force at Victoria Barracks, Sydney, on the 14th of December 1915, and weeks later began his training. His father had died in 1901, his mother in 1908. So on enlistment, he listed his older brother David as his next of kin. Just over 3 months later, he sailed from Sydney aboard the troop ship Nestor with the reinforcements of the 17th Battalion. Glassford briefly trained in Egypt and later England before sailing for the war on the Western Front in September 1916. Glassford joined the 17th Battalion in the trenches near Zillebeke, about a kilometre southeast of Ypres, on the 24th of September 1916. The 2nd Australian Division, of which the 11th Battalion was part, had taken part in the bloody fighting at Pozières in July and August and had suffered terrible casualties. They moved north to the Ypres section in order to recover and prepare for future operations. On the afternoon of the 26th of September 1916, Glassford was building a parapet in a support trench when his battalion came under shrapnel and high explosive artillery fire, a German retaliation for an earlier barrage on the German lines. He was struck by shrapnel in the head and killed instantly. Glassford was 26 years old and had been on the front for only 2 days. His body was removed from the trenches and buried behind the lines later that night. He now lies in the railway dugouts burial ground near Ypres, where over 2,000 casualties of the First World War now lie. His name is listed on the Roll of Honour on my right, among almost 62,000 Australians who died while serving in the First World War. A photograph of his headstone is displayed today beside the pool of reflection. This is but one of many stories of service and sacrifice told here at the Australian War Memorial. We now remember Private Edward James Crichton Glassford, who gave his life for us, for our freedoms, and in the hope of a better world.
Please stand for the ode and the sounding of the last post.
They shall grow not old, as we that are left grow old. Age shall not weary them, nor the years condemn. At the going down of the sun, and in the morning, we will remember them. lest we forget.
Lest we forget. We leave you this evening with the words of the memorial's founder, Charles Bean. Many men lying out there at Poziere or in the low scrub at Gallipoli, with his poor, tired senses barely working through the fever of his brain, has thought in his last moments, well, it's over. But in Australia, they will be proud of this. Ladies and gentlemen, girls and boys, that concludes the last post ceremony. Thank you for visiting the Australian War Memorial, and we wish you all a very good evening.